the majority kind of hear the same answer. Otherwise, it's kind of a real pointless move. So, Matt, I hope you're ready for the questions of the week coming in from our listeners.
I'm always ready for the questions.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get on this podcast, I'll tell you. David T from Bournemouth. I read that Triple H told media that WWE sped the whole UK concept up when they heard about World of Sport piloting a show. My question is this: in all seriousness, if that is the case now, from the horse's mouth, and what implications would World of Sport returning have on WWE's brand? So that's the first part of his question anyway. I mean, the thing is, David, is that, you know, from my take on this is that, I did hear that interview. I don't know if you saw that, Matt, when Triple H come out and spoke on social media, and he did mention stuff like that. Like, what I read into that is that's just, I don't take it like they see it as a rival. I just think that as a business, that's the move you make, and you know, then I don't think they're doing it to sort of like throw a spanner into the woodworks. Because here's the thing: to me, like I've said this before as well, it makes no odds, because World of Sport, WWE can't do anything about ITV. They can't go on ITV and stop them from doing it. And let's face it, ITV are going to have a completely different market of people watching their product, because you're going to get the average viewers, whereas WWE, they only have the network subscribers. Now, there could be an argument to be made, well, what about the rosters? Could WWE try and sign, you know, their best guys from World of Sport and offer them more money, and etc., etc.? Well, we don't know enough. We really don't. We don't know what ITV are doing. We don't really know what WWE are doing. Matt, from your standpoint, is there I mean, a lot of people like to sort of think that there is a huge rivalry about to take place, Matt, that there is going to be a battle commencing here, and there are going to be conflicts of interests about what this does for the UK industry, and are WWE damaging it? And we made the case last time, a couple of weeks ago, Matt, where I think we definitely feel for the local promotions, no doubt about it. If you're there every week, and you know, you could argue that we see it every week, but you know, it doesn't get publicised because of, you know, it's not WWE. But at the end of the day, Matt, the thing is as well, you've got to remember, is those guys wouldn't get the kind of exposure that they had last night to the American audience without having WWE come in and do it. So it kind of works both ways. What's your take on the concept of the rivalry between World of Sport coming in? And do you really believe, Matt, that WWE did get a little bit cautious more about ITV running this, like they would see it as a threat?
It kind of feels like we've been left out for a little while, you know, for quite a long time now, and all of a sudden two people come along and want us at the same time. The fight, it feels like the fight over us, but it's not that at all, you know. It feels like anyone says that it's a war between them two, it's not the case, because if we watch WWE like we watch the tournament, then that's great, you know, but we're watching it because we want to, and if that is hurting like ITV, or people think that it is taking away fans from that, then they're the ones that went to watch the UK tournament. That's because that's what we want to watch. Yeah. We're making a choice about what we want to see, and personally, I watched them both. So as long as like people do that, if they like both products and they want to see both, just watch both, and it should all be fine. You know, we shouldn't have to worry. I just think personally, it's great for the UK scene, and that, you know, two things like this have come along at once. I think it's the best time that's been in a long time for the UK scene, that we're now getting like this much exposure and getting this much stuff on TV, and I think like this could be the start of something. So if we just keep enjoying it and keep watching it, it should actually be more beneficial and harmful for either of them.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And also, you know what? Even if there is a bit of rivalry, it never hurts anybody, because as we saw in the Monday Night War, you got the best of the best, so it can only like make each other's game up their game better. In a lot of ways, don't forget. But I really don't think they're not going to be competitive on channels. Like, it's a completely different thing altogether. I really do believe that. The only thing that would cause friction, I believe, was if they start sort of plucking talent away from them. That might become an issue. But other than that, no, for me at the moment. But I will say this, David T ends by saying, I really liked the WWE tournament. Thought it was absolutely incredible. But if I had to pick between World of Sport and the past weekend's WWE 2-night shows, I would probably pick World of Sport just because of the unique feel to it and most of all variety of different matches. So there you go, that's David's take on it, on that one. And that's where he goes, of course, entitled to his opinion. Thank you, David, for your question. DX1 is back and he says, I don't understand what on earth Vince sees in Braun Strowman. He's pretty average in the ring and his character is a bit flat. Do either of you see anything in him? Also, heard Baron Corbin is expected to have a big 2017. Any news your end? So I did mention Baron Corbin earlier, the X1. I've been reading that a lot. But Matt, just to talk about Braun Strowman, is he as average as what the X1 is saying, or is Vince just seeing a big guy as usual, or is there something that we haven't yet seen from Braun that he potentially has got that star quality?
Well, it's easy for us to sit on our comfy sofa at home watching the wrestling going, what do people see in Braun Strowman? But I can probably guarantee you, if you got in Braun Strowman's face and he was standing over you and the size of him and the thickness, you'd see something then. You'd say, man, that's a big man. We're comparing Braun to other wrestlers, and these are big dudes, but to an average man, Braun is a monster. And when you see him compared to someone else, and the voice that he has, a booming voice, and he's into wrestling. Braun's into wrestling. There's loads of big guys about, yeah, but they might not want to be wrestlers. So to find someone that size that enjoys being a wrestler and is kind of scary looking, that's what Vince sees, I suppose. It would be likening it to saying, what did people see in Andre the Giant? He was just a big guy. Didn't have much wrestling skill though.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, look, we don't really know enough about Braun yet. I mean, I think they're protecting him well, but I will say that I've heard some stuff where I was listening to a phone-in show about some of the guys that had been to see some of the recent Raws, and they all say that the anticipation for Braun to come out, there's something good about it, it's like a special attraction, and he gets quite a big pop when he first hits the ring, and people want to see him. So he's got that about him, which is always a good thing. I didn't like the feud with him and Sami Zayn. I didn't really think it done much for either guy, in a sense. But Braun definitely has been sort of penciled in for Vince McMahon as a pet project, I believe. How far he goes, who knows? I mean, for all we know, he is the Royal Rumble winner. I mean, you never know. In which case, I'm not dead against either, because he's a big guy. He should be one of the favourites for the Royal Rumble, the way he's been treated. So, we have to see. You can only give the guys a chance. But, listen, about his wrestling, the thing is he's working a certain style. You can't have him running around doing flip-ups and technical wrestling, because it would look stupid, So you have to have him in performing a certain way. You go back and watch The Undertaker, you ask yourself, why is he not doing any other moves? But he's performing a character. Sid the same. When you're a big guy, you want to work that big man style. Otherwise, it comes across just all too the same. You don't want to see a big guy getting hit down all the time, which is where I think poor Big Show's got to these days. So, but anyway, thank you very much, the X1, for your question. Next coming on is Pete Stempson. Reminds me of Stempson. I'm sure I've heard that name before. It's Granger or something like that. Ringing a few numbers. Okay, and he says, Matt, that have only just started to watch wrestling, really enjoy it, but was really disappointed because when I started to listen to the wrestlers talk after, they all talk about playing a character rather than being their character. I feel like this has a certain feel and comparison to magic and magicians, how they've exposed themselves. What do you think? Well, it's interesting you're a new fan and you've seen it like that. And to be fair with you, it's kind of a shame that the illusion has almost gone, Matt. That the fun of that has been taken well away, hasn't it? Like when we were growing up with it, nobody was talking about wrestling to the level it is now. It wasn't as exposed as it is now, to the point where even the own company talks about it in a sort of third world now, doesn't it? Like they don't even protect it. So what do you think, Matt? I mean, is it a case of like the magicians telling you how they do their tricks in a sense that it's better not knowing?
Yeah, it kind of is like that, really. But, there's so much stuff they've got out there now, so much content, and we always talk about it now and that. But when we talk about Total Divas, you can't have a show like that and then have them pretending to be their characters. That would be awful, wouldn't it? Having people on there, having John Cena running around in his shorts telling people to never give up and all this stuff, not talking about what is important in his life. God, yeah, I would just rather them be open and honest now, because of all the stuff they do with charity work and with the media and that. It just makes sense for them to be a lot more honest about it. But yeah, I mean, it is a kind of a shame. Back when you was a kid, or when we was a kid, we was watching it and you'd actually believe in it. But it can be damaging to an extent as well, because you might as well be honest, because otherwise you end up with a situation like we did with Hogan, and he's doing court cases, and he's not, all of a sudden, he's not the hero you thought he was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I totally agree with what Matt said. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I do miss it. There are positives. The one thing I will say is you're never going to get back to that, never. There's too much come out now by old wrestlers and all the rest of it. Like, it's just so much has been said. It's just one of those things. Back in the territories days, if you was to do that, you'd probably be beaten up by most of the guys in the locker room when you come back in there. So that never used to happen because of those reasons. Very protected. But I think, nowadays, not only that, society's changed as well, and, you think of social media and everything else. It's just so hard to keep it like that. But I will say, again, we were talking about New Japan earlier. They do have some sort of code out there where they don't kind of, like, they still have heels in one coach and faces in the other. Like, they still do things like that. And, we spoke about it time to time, Matt, where we would prefer if they didn't make it so bloody obvious sometimes. Especially if they're in a feud against one another. That's the worst. And I've seen that before. Whether it be Total Divas or anything else, like they're in a feud against each other, but we're actually going to see them talk it out backstage how they're going to perform. That does take the fun out of it a bit, somewhat. Okay, I've got a question here about Bobby Lashley. This is from Z09. Hi guys, this is a pretty random question. It's just that I've been flicking through my WWE network. I got to see a lot of Bobby Lashley, who I was a fan of. Wanted to know why WWE never gave him clothes. He looked like the video game version from Raw vs SmackDown, where all the characters came out in just wrestling attire. Bobby Lashley wasn't competing at a show, yet still come out in wrestling gear. And he was injured at the time. Why was this? And I've got to be honest, because I knew this question was coming in, Matt, I had to go back and find it, and I have found it. I can't remember what event it was. I don't know if you remember it, Matt, but he was not wrestling that night, but he still come out in his wrestling gear. It was very odd, and it was like he said, it was like he was in the game SmackDown vs Raw, where they just come out in their wrestling attire rather than anything else. I'm not sure why that happened. To be honest with you, any suggestions to that, Matt?
No, I mean, all I can say is that probably at the time they were looking at Bobby Lashley thinking, well, what's he got going for him? Well, he's got one hell of a physique. Okay, go on, go down to the ring and show that off. That will get you over. Yeah, it was very strange. The reason I say it was very strange is because just the what he was saying there, he already knew he wasn't going to wrestle. He knew he couldn't even fight, and he was just like having a chat. But he'd gone to this event, got all dressed up, and gone out like that. It was
it's like he'd gone home like it as well. It was just